want to hear a little bit from Dan Campbell. Here's Dan Campbell talking about who's not there at OTAs, because I know everybody's wondering.
So these guys are either out or will be limited. Adams, Martin, McNeil, Onzarike, Pascal, Reeder, Tyleek Williams, Wingo, Barnes, Campbell, Rodriguez, T.A., Branch, Dorsey, Holmes, Chris Spillman, Miles Frazier, Yaboa, St. Brown, Tesla, Demo, Vaki, Barry Sanders, and Calvin. So that's the list. And look, some of them are so minor. Like the rookies, man, they've been training for, the combine, all that. But we're just trying to get some of these guys right physically. We're working with them. Fish is working with them. Mike Clark and that crew. And let's get their bodies right, everything aligned right, and then they'll be ready for training camp. And a number of guys, we're just trying to be smart. We got a little dings here and there, and so we're just trying to make sure everybody's good.
I appreciate this from Dan Campbell. That was the kind of conversation yesterday when we were talking about Mike Vrabel, Stephon Diggs. What was the conversation? What understanding did they have as it relates to him being there, him not being there? This is what you have when you have a team that has consistently over the last 4 years gotten better and better and better, and the identity hasn't changed. Man, these guys are working hard all the time. And when you're in the playoffs 3 years in a row, Maz, like when you're playing 17 games in a year, you need extra time here or there.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that, he's not necessarily tripping. As long as you have a conversation with a coach, especially a good team, with a good coach like Dan Campbell, you can figure things out. Not everybody's always going to be there. When I was in New York with Rex said, hey, just try to be here as much as you can, and when you're not here, just communicate with me. Easy breezy. And you never heard any smoke come out of Florham Park. Where are you with the guys that aren't there, kind of the message that Dan Campbell, the message that Dan Campbell and the guys not being there?
I have no issue with it, obviously. Let's face it, these guys, they know where everyone is. They know where everyone is. Now, I don't remember, did he say Anzalone? Was Anzalone in that? I don't remember. But anyway, I think they'll get something done with him, whether it's a 2-year thing or whatever. I think they'll take care of their business. They take care of their guys. They're all Dan Campbell guys. There's no smoke, like Braylon would say, coming out of Allen Park. It is all white smoke, all right? It's all good. It is all good. No, they didn't select the Pope or anything. That smoke is white, and it's all fine. They're going to be just fine. And don't forget, they had to get to camp earlier this year because they played the first game of the year at the end of July, the Hall of Fame game against the Chargers in Canton, Ohio.
Maz with a great time, Joe, considering we just named the Pope a month ago.
Yes, sir.
I like the timing on that one. Did you catch the end and Barry and Calvin and having some fun with that? Like, this isn't the Dan Campbell that we knew 4 years ago. This is Dan Campbell, in my estimation, kind of settling into, and I think allowing the fan base, allowing the city of Detroit to know, like, Dan Campbell's going to be okay. That's at least what I took from it.
Oh, big time. And, beyond the technical who's going to be there and who's not, nobody was talking about Calvin Johnson from our front office, from our coaching staff for 10-plus years.
Yeah. Good
All
point.
of the alumni, everybody from national pundits to our very own Lions faithful here, our Lions pride, everybody's rallying around this team. The guys that had crossed this alumni association off their list because they didn't like the way that the Lions handled them, ownership has figured out a way to mend those bridges, and you are seeing Megatron back in the fold. Obviously, Barry's been around, but he's a big part of this team right now. And we're seeing that up and down. I mean, this is a team that's never had a Super Bowl, but you're getting people coming back and contributing and buying in like we've never seen around this team before. That's what I took away. I'm excited about the belief and buy-in from all generations.
Yeah, I think you aren't the only one excited. I think everyone's excited. Ricky, would you say you're excited as well?
I would have to say I've never been more excited in my life. Between Dan Campbell and the Aiden news, I feel like those two things alone that we just heard over the last week or two is just, if you're a Lions fan, you have to be in the right frame of mind. Don't stop worrying about all the small things, the maybes. Not like we're 90-something days away from the season.
98, I believe. 98
and we kicking it off at the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
Come on now, bro, I can't wait.
I'm glad you brought that up. Dan Campbell also talked about the joint practices that they would have. They were a success when we had them a couple years ago. You look back at the Colts series, that's on Hard Knock. You saw what Coach at the time, Frank Wright, was talking about the team. You saw the other things. Now they have some joint practices against some really good teams, some good coaches. Here's Dan Campbell talking on the joint practices this year.
Joint practices figured out yet?
We do. The plan is to go with Miami a couple of days, and then we'll go with Houston that last week for a day.
You heard him. He's got it with the Dolphins and the Texans. Texans is going to be a short one, and then the Lions have the following week off because they start early, so they finish early. So they'll get a week off before the regular season starts, and they have to open up. Who they against the Packers, right?
Against the Packers.
Open up against the Packers.
Maz, not to cut you off, there's one thing I'm excited about for that Miami Dolphins kind of like practice. You know what it is? The Dolphins, based on the season they had last year, the season they had the year before, the pieces that they've bought in, the where are we as a franchise situation, they're going to practice extremely hard in that opportunity against a team that a lot of people have winning a Super Bowl.
Yep.
So you're going to get your best out of Miami, and they got some good players. So I'm excited for that to kind of help the Lions before the season starts.
And the Lions will play. They host the Dolphins. They host Houston. So those games will be at home, and of course those practices will be at Allen Park. So once those tickets get ready to go up, guys. You better grab them. Lions season ticket holders, grab them real quick. But then there's some allotted to the general public, but you got to get in really quick to go visit those practices.
Speaking of
Lions,
Lions, speaking of Lions season ticket holders, we have one on the phone ready to talk to you.
No doubt.
But this is how we'll finish it. Dan Campbell came to the podium. You know, OTAs, it's always a lot made of who's there, who's not there. It always rubs me the wrong way as a former player. But you hear Dan Campbell talking, and he's not making anything about the guys that aren't there because of young guys. They had to get ready for the draft. Then we brought them here. They've been working older guys, I understand. And then even at the end of it, he mentions Calvin and Barry and Chris Spillman in the middle just to have fun. Talk about his energy at this press conference and talk about where you believe Dan Campbell is at.
Look, this is exactly what we expect and what we've come to love about Dan Campbell. He is not worried about anybody that's not here. He is only worried about the people that are there. And you talk about the Detroit Lions now, and you look at the history, and maybe you see the Barry Sanders and the Calvin Johnsons and the Chris Spielmans of the world even a little bit differently with the team's recent success. I mean, it's I almost look fondly upon Lions history now, and those obviously the Lions greats, but you almost look fondly upon that because of just how good this team and this organization has been over the last 3.5 years. I think this guy's as dialed in as we have. Well, we hope he's dialed in as much as he's ever been. This is another year where you expect to win the Super Bowl.
Speaking of
how many times?
Yeah.
Oh,
what's that?
Oh no, go ahead.
Keep
Go
going.
ahead.
I was just gonna say how many games will the Lions line up this year where you're like, nah, gonna lose that one. I mean, honestly, there's not one game on the schedule that I will go into saying they're gonna lose that game. Now they'll probably lose 5 or 6 games, maybe even in 4 or 5. But the Lions will have a chance to win every game they play, including the one at the end. They will have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. All things being equal, if they're healthy, I would put their chances up with anybody. If I told you right now, gentlemen, and maybe we can go around the room, you get one team, you can pick one team, life on the line, that's the team that's going to win the Super Bowl. Whose roster would you trade with the Lions?
Wow.
Whose roster would you trade with them?
Just Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
I think Kansas City's going to miss. I get that. I think Kansas City is going to miss the playoffs this year. Wow. It's a bold. It's one of my bold takes. It's one of my bold takes this year. I just think even Tom Brady and the Patriots in that 20-year run had some down years. I mean, it's got to happen at some point, doesn't he?
Yeah. I know. I'm with you, man.
They went 10 years in between Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Patriots.
You're absolutely correct. If you're talking roster for roster, man, I mean, if you want to say Baltimore, then fine, but we know Baltimore is in the playoffs. The only roster that I can think about is the team that won the Super Bowl. Because you look at the same thing that we talk about, the Detroit Lions, their identity is still very much intact on the offensive side of the ball. And even on defense, they got a bunch of young players that we saw take steps last year. But you're right. I wouldn't – any other team outside of that, I wouldn't put over them. I would take the Lions roster and then I would take probably Eagles.
And even Philadelphia, though, I expect Washington to win that division. I think they're going to have a heck of a time in the NFC East. I almost called it the AL Central.
But that's what you got to love about it, because Philadelphia is saying the same thing about the Lions. Hell, they're going to have a hard time with the Vikings. They're going to have a hard time with Packers. They're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Exactly. Maz, you had something?
I know. I'm with you, Rye, but I probably would be with you. I would not trade this roster. I would not trade this roster and this head coach. This head coach, I'm ride and die with this guy. Now, he's got 2 new coordinators and a bunch of new guys here that we don't know really. Sure, we know Kelvin Shepard has been here. He's been, helping on the defense, helping with the linebackers. But now he's got the whole enchilada. And I know the new play caller, John Morton. It's not Ben Johnson anymore. But the guy that actually says, okay, we'll run that play, is Dan Campbell. So I'm all in on the Lions. Now, our good friend Rob Parker, as we know, likes to stir the pot. And he said the Lions window is past. And, he likes to laugh. Get robbed, come on, the whole 9 yards. He thinks the Lions window is past. I don't think he's serious. Do you really believe the Lions window is past?
I don't believe it is, but I guarantee you Rob Parker believes what he says. You might not like what he says, but I'll give Rob Parker this. Every time he comes up with a crazy statement, he has a reason or 2 or 3 for why he has that. Now, I disagree with it, but I believe that Rob Parker believes what he says. And I think a lot of Lions fans, there's probably a good portion of them that felt that the best chance for this team to get to the Super Bowl was in San Francisco a couple of years ago.
Of course.
And then Dan Campbell said what he said. It's really hard to get back to this point. The next year, home field advantage throughout. They don't even win a playoff game and get bounced in their first game. And so you're sitting there, you blew an opportunity, and you can't – they didn't lose that game. They flat out blew it. They choked.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just reality. And then they did win a playoff game the year after that. And then, so you come back. I expect them to be right back in the mix here in year 3 of this run. I'll call this year 3 since the San Francisco game. And if they don't do it this year, then you're going to hear a lot of whispers.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think this is the year, right?
I agree.
mean, if you don't do it this year, you start to become kind of like Kyle Shanahan, right? Can you win the big one? That's the question with Kyle Shanahan. Can you win the big one? He's had, 6 opportunities and has never won the Super Bowl with probably one of, if not the most complete roster in all of football for a long time. So you kind of go in that category then. Look at Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur, same way. What's the difference between Matt LaFleur and Dan Campbell right now?
Oh, the difference is between Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan is, regardless of excuses, they didn't have 22 players that were injured on the defensive side of the ball. You show me one of those 49ers teams that was missing Nick Bosa, that was missing Fred Warner, that was missing Greenlaw. Well, they were missing Greenlaw last year, and it kind of hurt them. So
I mean, that's fine, but I'm just saying if they don't win the Super Bowl this year,
then
it's over.
Yeah.
Then you have a fair thought to be over. Rob Parker's Rob Parker. He loves to blow a little smoke, get people talking about him, and also there's a level of research behind it. But this one, I think he's just out of tune because he's no longer here. This is Rob Parker from L.A. This isn't Rob Parker that's on the streets of Detroit, that's got the beat of Detroit day to day. And even though you can read articles, I don't think he's tapping in like this. I think this is some lazy journalism.
He's been rage baiting since before rage baiting was even a term.
100%. Ryan, here we go. Johnny Morton. This is something that I've come around on with Johnny Morton. We put so much emphasis on, is Johnny Morton going to be Ben Johnson, who, by the way, is the one that started David Montgomery and not Jahmyr Gibbs. Glad he's gone in that regard. But we get so much, Ben's not here. Is Johnny going to have the same pulse? Are we forgetting the fact that Ben Johnson and Jared Goff built this offense? Jared Goff is the one that's been quarterbacking this offense last time I checked 4 years in a row, soon to be 5. He helped put this in place. The team is still in place. His wide receivers are still the same. His offensive line is still the same. His running backfield is the best in the league. It's still the same. Are we not giving Jared Goff enough credit for what he has been and what he potentially could be this year?
Probably not. You're probably right about that, Braylon. Jared Goff seems to be, you know, I hesitate to call it an afterthought. That's not the right word. But Jared Goff, if you look at the numbers that he's put up over the last 2 years, let's just take last year for instance. I mean, he was up there with some of the all-time greats in the history of the game. And you really don't hear a lot about Jared Goff. You heard about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sonic and Knuckles and the great offensive line. You really didn't hear a ton of Jared Goff. Even 2 years ago when he went all of those passing attempts without throwing an interception. Now, last year he threw his fair share, but remember he went, what was it, like a full calendar year without throwing an interception or something along those lines. Really didn't hear much about how good Jared Goff is, but you did hear about Ben Johnson and how dynamic an offense he was. For Ben Johnson to be who he turned out to be, and that's, you know, offensive coordinator of the year, he needed a quarterback that can run that offense. He needed a quarterback that could be precise with all throws, that could read defenses, that can audible, that can walk up to the line and have that kind of command of what all 10 other players on the field had to do. And I don't think Jared Goff gets enough credit. He does get a lot of the blame, and rightfully so sometimes. You got to hang on to the football. Always go back to when he was concussed against Washington.